you need to know that you're in the perfect position for your story to amaze people. You are literally one lap away, but you gotta keep running. You got to keep running. A week later, I'm in the Somalian water, all of these child soldiers who had just gotten rescued. And there's this one kid, and we were just able to get him out. Because every single day, his dad would show up, and he would say, don't let this kid out of prison. His own father would stand there, and he would just there is such a difference in telling your story in a way that makes you seem amazing and telling your story in a way that's going to amaze people. Like, such a difference. There's a difference between being known as amazing and amazing people. The word amazing, interesting, the word amazing is an adjective. And the word means to strikingly impress, to be strikingly impressive. The word amaze, it's a verb. And it means to fill with astonishment. And you see, sometimes where we get caught up is we have this story, right? And we have this story, we either have this story that we're gonna tell, and we get to tell it in whatever way we wanna tell it. If we tell it in a way that we want us to look amazing, we might strikingly impress people. We might. But that's only to modify our story itself, right? To make it seem like a success story. But when you tell the story to amaze other people, to fill people with astonishment, you fill them with this action of, you know what? What makes this amazing is that I once was really struggling and now I'm made new, you know? And it doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone who saw the story and the situation. It's amazing that I can be able to stand up here with a microphone and share to you, but what amazes me is that I couldn't even read in class because I was so afraid. You know, like, it's amazing that we serve a Jesus who's alive, but it's even more amazing that he was dead for 3 days. Like, that's what amazes people. And, you know, I think about like this generation a lot, you know. I'm 21. I love Jesus with all my heart. I love this culture of people who love Jesus too. And, you know, we see how much of an exciting God he is. Like, how many of you in here would say that, like, we know we serve the God of miracles, yeah? Like, we know that, but so many people don't know that. And I think about that. And I'm thinking, man, so many people in this generation, you know, they read the Bible and they're like, man, this is a miraculous God, right? But he's not still a miraculous God. And I think that sometimes it's because we only want to be seen on the other side of the miracle. And we forget to tell him about what makes it miraculous. Because I think that we are actually the walking evidence that he is a miraculous God. I can say myself, I am a miracle, because I've seen things that were so dead in me that I thought that were so filled with shame, that were so filled with fear, absolutely come alive and be able to be seen because the miraculous God that he is. It's the resurrection power of the cross. And I just think some people in here need to know that your race is not over. That you might think you're less than amazing, but something's about to amaze everybody in the room. Like, it's not over. Moses was once known as amazing from the world standpoint, right? He was a prince of Egypt. That's amazing. But then he killed a man. Now he's a murderer. Oh no, now I'm a murderer. Now I gotta run. I gotta get out of here. He was just gonna run. He was just gonna hide. He probably just planned to hide his life away. Before the Red Sea split, before he met with God on the mountain, before he led an entire generation out of slavery, he almost stopped running because he thought, oh, I'm known as a murderer, it's over. He almost stopped. But he was only one encounter away from his story becoming amazing. You are only one encounter away from your story becoming amazing. You're only one name away from everything about your story. Plot twist, it's amazing. One encounter. Moses is running, right? He just murdered a man. He's running. He's now, and he sees this bush burning, right? He sees a burning bush. And when he's sitting there, I love what happens. God kind of lays out what he's wanting to ask Moses to do. He's like, I'm gonna need you to go back to Egypt, and I'm gonna need you to tell Pharaoh to let my people go. And Moses is like, who am I? Who am I that I can go back to Egypt and tell Pharaoh to let your people go? God, like, who am I? And isn't that what we do? We're like, who am I? No. Those people know me as a murderer. I'm not going back. That's like that demon-possessed man. He's like, no, take me out of here. They know me as a demon-possessed man. I'm not going back. But God says, no, I want you to go back. Moses is like, how? Who am I? And God says, no, you're going to go back because I am going to go with you. You see, there might not be confidence in your run right now because you're alone, but the minute you have God running with you, there's a confidence that starts to come into play, right? Hebrews 10:35, so then do not forget the confident trust you have in the Lord, for that will be richly rewarded. Patient endurance is what you need now so that you will be able to test and approve what God's good, perfect, and pleasing will is for your life. I don't have to be confident that I'm going to be able to make it along the last lap by myself, but I'm going to be confident and trusting in the Lord for what he's going to do, because he's the one that's going to renew my strength. But Moses still, he's like, nope, not good enough. Why me? Why me, God? Why me? What am I going to say to them when they see a murderer come back? What am I going to say? And God says, you tell them, I am who I am. Because it really doesn't matter who you are. It really just matters who I am. And if I'm sending you, I've already considered who you are, and I'm still calling you to go because I'm going to be with you. And that's what's gonna amaze people. Get past that reputation. People aren't focused on your reputation at that point. They're focused on the Redeemer. When you let him be seen in your story, look, trust me, you're gonna be overlooked in the best way. You should actually welcome being overlooked because it's the best thing for people to just catch a glimpse of who he is. You watch people light up. You watch people be filled with awe and astonishment and wonder, and then you're able to say, oh no, please don't get it wrong. Don't think it's anything because of who I am. It has everything to do with who the creator is of this universe. I was in Mogadishu, Somalia last year. It was a really insane trip. I went with Bob Goff. A week later, I'm in the Somalian water with all of these child soldiers who had just gotten rescued by Bob's team. And we're there, and there's this one kid, and he just had the most radiant smile. I mean, he was glowing. And so me and him surfed together all day, and we didn't speak hardly any of the same language. We had an interpreter every now and then. And so I began to ask him about his life, about his story, and he told me his name, and then I said, what do you want to do with your life, you know? And he goes, I want to travel around Africa, and I want to tell them about Jesus. And I said, whoa, that's awesome. He's like, yeah. And I went up to Bob after. I said, who is that kid? I said, was he one of like the people who worked in the home? I didn't know anything about his story. And Bob said, him? Oh no, Sadie, 6 months ago, we had to get him out of prison because when he was 11 years old, he was a child soldier. He was in a terrorist group. He went through that for a little while, then he went to prison whenever he was 15, and we were just able to get him out. He said, but it's been the hardest struggle with him until 6 months ago. He said, because every single day, his dad would show up and he would say, don't let this kid out of prison. You don't know what he's gonna do to this nation. He's a terrorist. His own father would stand there and he would just say, there's no hope for him. His story's over. Keep him in prison. And every day Bob would show up and he would go, please have mercy on your son. Come on, please have mercy on your son. And then one day, the dad shows up and the dad goes to the kid, I believe that you're gonna be different. And every day he started showing up and he started saying, I believe that you're gonna change. I believe that your story is not over yet. And his dad began to speak life into this kid. And that was only 6 months before I met him. And he told me that he wants to speak about the name of Jesus to all of Africa. But it took him knowing that my dad believes in me. So I'm gonna keep running. So we were hosting the regionals event this year, and it was like this massive track event. It's the biggest track meet we've ever hosted at our school. And so I'm sitting there, I'm lined up, the gun shoots, and we're pacing, because like I didn't know they were pacing. I was like pretty much running full speed, but like they were pacing. So I'm like, this is good, I'm in this race, Well, about lap 3 rolls around, I'm not in this race anymore, but I'm steady, I'm still cruising. Lap 6 comes around, and I remember this day like it was yesterday. I was coming around, and I look at the sun, and I'm like, now would be the time to come in on the clouds. Like, the Lord, just like right now, just end it now. Like, this is so embarrassing. I'm wheezing. I'm about to walk off this track. This is not good. So I'm getting ready to come around to do lap 7. And this is about when my worst nightmare comes flying around the track. I realize that I'm about to get overlapped. And I'm like, oh, that's so embarrassing. And it wasn't even, like, the embarrassing thing was not the fact that I was about to get overlapped. It was the fact that I was about to get overlapped by everybody. And so the revelation of that means that the 8th lap, I'm doing alone. Like, that means like I'm about to run this 8 lap by myself at the biggest track meet of our whole entire season, where everybody's there, where everybody's watching. It's the height of Duck Dynasty. Everybody knows who I am. This is so embarrassing. So, they finished. I'm like clapping for them as I'm going for my last lap. I'm like, good job, guys. See you in a second. And I'm like literally walking at this point. And my coach is like, don't you stop running. Don't you stop running. So around the corner, and y'all, this is whenever this becomes amazing, because right before I'm about to do this last lap, like I'm thinking of all like these scary thoughts. I'm like, okay, first of all, this is mortifying. Second of all, I actually might pass out. I might throw up. I also might just get a pity clap from everybody, and that's just as embarrassing as them all. So I'm like, this is just bad. So I'm rounding it, and all of a sudden, I see my brother running down from the bleachers. He has a speaker in his hand, and he's playing It's the Heart of a Champion. Yes, shout out to John Luke Robertson. He comes running down, and he runs the last lap with me. Like, isn't that amazing? Like, and so, but what happened when my brother came down, he's playing It's Hard Champion, the crowd, like, it's no pity clap, they erupt. They're like, yeah, it's the heart of a champion, And like, me and John Lee run that last 100, and we're like, come on, everybody, let's give it up. We're like hopping down the last 100. And I tell you that story because I feel like God gave me such a specific thing to share with y'all today. And I've never shared anything like this before, but I feel like God was just saying, somebody in here thinks that the race is over because their reputation is ruined, but it holds nothing on their redemption story that's about to happen. Nothing. And you need to know that. The 6th lap, the 7th lap in my little track story, it's funny, right? It's funny that I was like dying and wheezing and like, but it's not funny in real life, The 6th and 7th lap, it's not funny. It's actually really, really hard. It's that moment when your legs are getting really heavy because shame is getting really heavy. It's that moment where like your chest is getting really tight because anxiety is very present. It's the real things actually in life that get really hard, and it's hard because they're actually very noticeable to the people around you, which fills you with embarrassment. It's a hard lap. It's a really hard lap. But if you're in that position right here, if you literally came in this morning and you were like, I don't even know what's about to happen, but oh my gosh, I'm on the 7th lap, you need to know that you're in the perfect position for your story to amaze people. You are literally 1 lap away, but you gotta keep running. And that was kind of the word today that I just want to remind you, you got to keep running. So you might be in here and you're like, okay, I need to keep running, but how do I keep running? Because I remember that day before my brother came and ran with me, my track coach was yelling at me and he was like, keep running, don't stop. And I'm like, you don't understand. I actually don't know how to keep running. Like my legs might not move. Like you might be in that position where you're like, okay, I hear you. I want to keep running, but how physically, when I'm right here in this position, how do I keep running? Well, let's give some biblical principles because the word activates things, right? So it's going to activate our movement. In Hebrews 12:1, it gives us this really, really awesome way to keep running. And I'm going to read it exactly because I want you to I want you to hear it for exactly what it is. Hebrews 12 says, therefore, since we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off anything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles us, and let us run with perseverance the race marked before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and the perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the agony of the cross. So right now, how do you keep running? Well, you got to throw off anything that hinders you. You got to throw off anything that's entangling you up. Any sin that you've been holding on to, you got to throw it off, because that's going to make the run a whole lot harder. If you're running and you got all this stuff on you, it's really hard to run, right? So let's identify what that is on you. You probably know it. It probably popped in your mind right now. We got to throw it off. Take our eyes off the crowd of people, and we got to fix our eyes on Jesus, right? The author and the perfecter of our faith. Because when he was enduring the humiliation and the agony of the cross, even Jesus went through a situation, that 6th and 7th lap, right? Where he was losing breath. When everybody saw him and he was once claiming that he was the Son of God and claiming that all these things, he's miraculous, he's all these things, he's now on the cross. But he fixed his eyes on what was gonna come. He fixed his eyes on what was ahead. You gotta fix your eyes. You gotta take it off, you gotta fix your eyes, you gotta keep running. How do you keep running? It says that if you just would put your trust in the Lord. Oh man, don't you love this verse? If you'll just put your trust in the Lord, man, you're gonna run and you're not even gonna grow weary. You're gonna walk and you're not gonna faint if you just trust the Lord. You don't have to even trust your ability to run. Thank God, because that 7th lap, I wasn't getting anywhere. You know what I'm saying? Just trust the Lord. You're gonna run. You're not gonna grow weary. Why do you keep running? Because I remember thinking this that day too. I was like, why do I even keep running? Because like everybody's done. I don't even run, right? Like I could just actually stop and we could just never talk about this again. But why do I keep running? Why do I finish when the winners are announced? Why do I finish when everybody's making fun of me? Why do I finish when nobody believes in me? Will you finish? Because the Lord says, I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. There's a purpose in your run. You may be sitting here right now and you're just like me. You're like, why? There are plans for you. And even though right now you may not feel like a runner, right now you might not feel like you're amazing, you need to know that before the foundation of the world began, he called you blameless in his sight. And then he proceeded to knit you together in your mother's womb. And for this time in history right now, he breathed life into you. And you're saying, Sadie, I'm going to be a miracle. Yes, you're going to be a miracle. How do I know that? Are you breathing? You're a miracle. Are you breathing? There's a purpose. If you're still breathing, even though it might be a really hard breath, there's a reason. Keep running and don't stop.